he has or had been with the FBI about 25 years. Is that right?
Well, now you're testing my knowledge a little bit.
Okay. He was a powerful guy. Is that correct?
I'm sorry?
He was a powerful guy. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know that I would use that description.
Okay. He had no power?
I think every law enforcement agent in the FBI with the responsibilities they're entrusted with has significant power.
Okay. Did he work on the President Trump Russian collusion investigation?
I'm not sure I know the answer to that. Not that I'm aware of, but I can't say that with certainty.
Did he or does he work on the FBI investigation of Mr. Hunter Biden?
So the investigation that you're referring to, and I have to be a little bit careful because we're talking about an ongoing investigation, is being run out of our Baltimore field office, working with the Delaware U.S. Attorney, who's a holdover from the prior administration.
So I'm confused, Chris, with your answer. Did he work or does he work on the Hunter Biden investigation?
As I said, the Hunter Biden investigation is being run out of the Baltimore field office.
Isn't it true that in September of 2020, Special Agent Thibault went on social media and liked a Washington Post article entitled, quote, "William Barr has gone rogue"?
I have seen descriptions to that effect. I have to be a little bit careful about how far we can go in this conversation because of specific ongoing personnel matters.
Isn't it true that also in September of 2020, Special Agent Thibault went on social media and posted a Washington Post article entitled, quote, "Why the Michael Flynn case still matters"?
A similar answer to the one I gave before.
Isn't it true that in November of 2020, Special Agent Thibault, Assistant Special Agent in charge of the D.C. office, who allegedly worked on the Trump-Russia collusion investigation and the Hunter Biden investigation, retweeted a Lincoln Project tweet that said, quote, "Donald Trump is a psychologically broken, embittered, and deeply unhappy man"?
Again, I've seen descriptions of posts, and I'm really trying to be very careful not to get in the way of any ongoing personnel matters.
Isn't it also true that in January of 2001, in response to Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville's election to the United States Senate from Alabama, of course, Special Agent Thibault went on social media and posted, quote, "Thank God for Mississippi, the state motto of Alabama"?
Can't sit here and quote chapter and verse on an individual's social media posts.
Isn't it also true that in June of 2020, Special Agent in charge Thibault, a 25-year veteran of the agency, tweeted to Congresswoman Liz Cheney, quote, "Your dad was a disgrace"?
Again, I've seen descriptions to that effect, but I'm going to have to be very careful not to interfere with any kind of ongoing person.
And last month, didn't Agent Tebow go on media and tweet, quote, "Can we give Kentucky to the Russian Federation?"
Again, same answer that I've given before.
All right. Isn't it true that Mr. Tebow, Agent Tebow, excuse me, and FBI Supervisory Intelligence Analyst Brian Otan covered up derogatory information about Mr. Hunter Biden while working for the FBI?
Well, again, I want to be very careful not to interfere with ongoing personnel matters. I should say that when I read the letter that describes the kinds of things that you're talking about, I found it deeply troubling. And
It is trouble.
And it is totally.
And it's not about their political beliefs.
Right.
It's not about their political beliefs. It's about that this is a senior employee at the FBI with years of experience going on social media and tweeting this kind of stuff.
So I have, since I started in
which gives the people the impression that there is bias, whether there is or there isn't.
I feel very strongly, and I have communicated consistently since I started as director, that our folks need to make sure that they're not just doing the right thing, that they're doing it in the right way, and that they avoid even the appearance of bias or lack of objectivity. And in fact, one of the things I did, which to my knowledge had never been done before at the FBI, was in 2018, I pulled together and I started at the top, which in my experience, and somebody in law enforcement, it never works that way. I started at the top and I brought the 250 or so very top people in the FBI from one corner of the globe to the other for a full day stand down at Quantico, where the whole focus of the message, and we heard from the Inspector General, we heard from a judge, we heard from the people who enforce the Hatch Act, the whole focus was on the importance of a...
The existence of the FBI's Foreign Influence Task Force is not a secret. The agency created it in 2017 to counteract foreign influence operations targeting the United States. If you don't look too closely, the task force seems like a reasonable response to an emerging threat to our nation's security. But in reality, the entire scheme is predicated on the notion that a threat is whatever the task force deems it to be. In a batch of documents and reporting released on Sunday, we learned that in the months leading up to the 2020 election, the task force became frustrated after Twitter employees indicated they hadn't seen much to suggest that foreign countries like Russia were using the platform to spread propaganda. So, what did the FBI do? They went on a fishing expedition and pressured decision makers within the company to abandon the notion that this was about national security. To that end, Twitter decided to let the FBI kick the door off the hinges and widen the scope of their own influence online at the expense of the integrity of the platform. And I say widen this because the FBI, along with the Department of Homeland Security and the intelligence community, had already engaged in a certain amount of mission creep when it came to investigating threats online. Both the FBI and DHS routinely pre-flagged content for moderation and sent the names of accounts directly to the FBI's contacts at Twitter. Several of the accounts sent for review were suspended or shadow banned, yet most of them weren't foreign propaganda at all. They were relatively low engagement accounts tweeting satire and jokes, and accounts of citizens. Many of them were owned by regular people who were obviously on the conservative side of the political spectrum. The FBI responded to this reporting by claiming that they often worked with private companies to provide information on foreign malign influence attempts. But as we have seen in black and white, most of the moderation requests made by the government didn't fall into that category. Instead, they focused on low follower accounts owned by ordinary Americans who tweeted opinions that the government did not agree with. These revelations prompt our next question. How did an allegedly serious investigation into influence campaigns devolve into a censorship free-for-all? To find your answer, you have to look all the way back to the 2016 Russian election interference story. These allegations were used as pretext to justify the blatant censorship covered in the Twitter files reporting. In November 2020, the FBI used that pretext to justify flagging so many examples of what they called possible violatable content that Twitter employees were overwhelmed. The story still had steam in 21 when DHS published a brief with their assessment that, and I'm quoting, Russian malign influencers probably will increasingly use U.S. social media platforms that offer more permissive operating environments, end quote. As I said, that is there, the DHS quote. And of course, it was that pretext that led to the most infamous instance of government-driven censorship in recent memory. When Twitter suppressed the New York Post story coverage of Hunter Biden's laptop, the platform made it clear they had done so because the story was the product of Russian meddling. Of course, this weekend's reporting revealed that Twitter employees had repeatedly informed the FBI that they had no evidence of significant Russian meddling. Twitter told the FBI repeatedly they had no significant evidence of Russian meddling. But under pressure from the government, they chose to buy into an influence operation that originated much closer to home. The FBI had primed the pump months before the laptop story broke by telling tech CEOs to expect hacking operations targeting people associated with political campaigns. They also planted seeds with elected officials and the media, and even hosted a tabletop exercise that mimicked one of those hacking operations. One person they identified as a potential target, Hunter Biden. Yes, it was Hunter Biden. And of course, his property had been in FBI custody since December 2019. So when the Post broke the story, it was easy for Twitter to take the easy way out and run with the FBI narrative rather than relying on evidence proving the story was a real scandal and not something cooked up by a Russian hacker. At this point in the story, it has become crystal clear that there is a much bigger agenda in play. When DHS tried to get away with creating an official disinformation governance board, I almost didn't believe what I was seeing. Here was an official government agency using national security as a pretext to censor political speech that was at odds with the Biden administration's policies. Fortunately, that effort collapsed under scrutiny, but they didn't need an official panel of bureaucrats to keep up the pressure on these companies. Back in July 21, I sent a letter to the White House after we discovered that their staff was in regular touch with social media platforms to suppress speech regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. I figured the American people had a right to know what criteria they were using to ask for that level of censorship and what the legal basis for this presumed authority was. Believe it or not, I never got an answer to the letter. And Madam President, I ask that that letter be printed alongside my remarks in the congressional record.
Without objection.
Thank you, Madam President. The American people aren't going to let this one go. I know Tennesseans are not going to let this go. They have hard evidence that big tech and the deep state have repeatedly suppressed legal speech to control political discourse in this country. These companies cannot be trusted to do what's right, and we as lawmakers can no longer wait for them to regulate themselves. They have proven over the past decade they will not regulate themselves. This is why I fought so hard to pass legislation requiring privacy, safety, data security protections for kids and adults. This year, the Kids Online Safety Act and the Open App